What's up, everybody? Welcome back to part 11 of my John Ferrick book review, Wrecking Crew, Demolishing the Case Against Steven Avery. If you're into the Steven Avery case, the Brendan Dassey case, the Making a Murderer Netflix series, I definitely recommend picking this book up. I got my copy on Amazon. He goes over way more than just making a murderer in the book and goes into way more detail than I do in these videos. So if you're interested in the case, definitely pick this book up. It is a great read. All right, we're going to jump into part 11 of my book review, and what we're doing is we're going over the information that was available at the time. Of course, a lot of new information has come out since this book was written, but we're going over what was in the book and what was available at the time the book was written. All right, he starts out by talking about the Brady violations in this case. If you don't know what a Brady violation is, it forbids prosecutors and police from hiding and concealing what is known as mitigating evidence that would be helpful or advantageous to the defendant under federal law. Prosecutors are expected to provide all information in their possession to the criminal defense counsel for review as part of their pretrial discovery. Talks about how Kathleen Zellner states that Steven Avery's original trial attorneys, Jerry Buting and Dean Strang, failed to hire the necessary experts in blood spatter, ballistics, fire forensic, pathology, and DNA to combat the avalanche of testimony by the state's 14 experts. Talks about how one of their biggest failures, he's talking about Dean Strang and Jerry Buting, was failing to call Brian Dassey to impeach his brother Bobby Dassey's testimony about how Teresa Halbach never left the Avery property. Bobby Dassey's testimony would have been discredited and the state's case would have collapsed. Talks about how Jerry Buting and Dean Strang overlooked actual swabs that may have been tampered with by police in order to produce a perfect DNA specimen that came from the key that was found in Steven Avery's bedroom and DNA that was found on the hood latch of Teresa Halbach's RAV4. It states that there is alleged proof that from the chain of custody forms for the hood latch swab that demonstrates that Weirgert delivered the so-called swab to the Wisconsin crime lab, but identified as another officer as doing so. He wrote someone else's name on the form stating that that officer actually delivered the hood latch swab DNA, but in fact he did it himself. Talks about how Kathleen Zellner states they tried many times to duplicate Andrew Colburn's story about manhandling the bookcase, and they could not get the key to fall out of the back of the bookcase and land where it did. Also, when they tried to duplicate it, all of the items on top of the bookcase fell off onto the floor during their experiments. It states that they should have subpoenaed the bookcase for trial and request Andrew Colburn to replicate what he did to get the key to fall out of the back and without all of the other items falling off the top of the... Talks about the bones that showed up at the Manitowoc County Quarry several hundred yards south of Steven Avery's property, but Ken Kratz did not want to risk that these bones were Teresa's, and probably neither did Thomas Fassbender or Mark Weirgert. So they seemed to have reached a general consensus that this particular item of evidence would be simply classified as bones of an undetermined origin. It's about how there was no forensic anthropologist present during the November 8th police excavation. It states crime lab personnel untrained in anthropology visually examined potential bone fragments to determine their evidentiary value. There were no effort to document from where in the burn pit certain bones were recovered or otherwise documented the order with which the bones were situated in the burn pit. The crime lab personnel excavating the burn pit placed the items of potential evidentiary value in a single box and sent it to Dr. Leslie Eisenberg for off-site examination. Talks about how the reported lack of anatomical continuity of human bones recovered from Steven Avery's burn pit indicate that Teresa Halbach's body was not burned there, and that it is the opinion that someone transferred Teresa Halbach's bones to Steven Avery's burn pit. There is a lot of information to unpack there. That's where we're going to leave part 11. So according to experts hired by Kathleen Zellner, they state that Teresa Halbach's body was burned off-site and then someone transferred the bones to Steven Avery's burn pit. Now remember, not only was there no forensic anthropologist on site, the coroner was also not allowed on site either. So many things, and there's absolutely no way Andrew Colburn would have been able to replicate getting the key to fall off or fall out of the back of that bookcase, and especially with the way they would have had to manhandle it, it would have caused all of the items on top of the bookcase to fall off as well. But we know that that didn't happen when Andrew Colburn allegedly shook this bookcase to get the results that he wanted. The key would never have fallen out the way that it did, and he would have never been able to replicate this in court, proving his theory false. Sure, could it have happened 1 in a million that this happened, that nothing fell off the top of the bookcase and the key just happened to pop out? Sure, but extremely unlikely, just like almost everything else in this case. What do you think of the case up until this point in the book? It is extremely interesting and extremely fishy of everything that is going on. Let me know what you think. Leave some comments below, and again, pick up John Farrick's book, Wrecking Crew. It is a great read. I hope you're all having a great day, and I'll see you again soon.